And we got Batul here as well. Hi, Batul.
Hi everyone.
Right.
One thing I haven't thought about is, and it might be a little bit late to think about this. Do we want Safa and Zaina? Do you think we ought to be doing any translation? I mean,
You mean for the students who
yeah,
might be joining? I'm not sure. I don't think we're gonna need this.
no. Okay. Maybe you can just put some key if we feel like we've got people who
We
might.
can drop messages in the chat.
Yeah, maybe you can just see, we can just gauge. I presume everybody's still in the waiting room.
Yeah, Peter is here as well,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we're missing Mirsad at this point.
Okay. Well, hang on a little bit until. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, I've just got a lovely hot chocolate made by Suleiman.
Same here.
Oh, wow, you got one too.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
I've been trying all kind of hot chocolate around Paris and yeah, still trying to find the best one.
Mirshad, hello.
And
Yeah,
Mirsad.
Mirsad's here.
I think it'd be great to start sooner rather than later, Nick, because teachers, if they're here, are very busy people.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll admit all, okay.
Let's let everybody in.
Hello.
Hello. Hello,
Hi
good
there.
evening, good afternoon, good morning, maybe, depending on where you are in the world. Hello from Brazil. Hello, Brazil. So it's lovely to see lots of different people joining from around the world. This, just to make sure everyone's in the right place, this is the orientation session for the 2025 Hands Up Project Poetry Competition. And my name is Nick Bilborough, and I'm the founder of the Hands Up Project charity. And I'm here in Cairo at the moment at the Hands Up Project's educational space in Cairo for children from Gaza who've escaped who escaped from Gaza and are now studying English, maths, and Arabic here in Cairo with us. So this session is a orientation session for our competition. I'm going to do the boring bit, perhaps, at the beginning, which is just to talk about the rules and the regulations. And then I'm going to hand over to our poets, who will also be the judges for the competition. And they're going to give you some ideas and some pointers as to how you might work with a poem, or how you might create a poem for this competition. So the first thing I'd like to do is to just share the blog post, which isn't working suddenly. Why is that not working? There we go. Well, it's not allowing me to share the screen for some reason. You can't see my screen now, can you?
We can see it, Nick.
I can see it, yeah.
Oh, I can't see it. Can you see the blog post?
We can just
Scroll
see the
down.
banner at the top, Nick. Can you scroll down a little?
Can you see that?
That's it. If you scroll down a little.
Okay. Right. So this is the Hands Up Project Poetry Competition 2025. And as you know, this is the painting that we are asking you to write a poem, or to be inspired by this painting to write a poem. There are two main rules that you need to know about, and those rules are, well, there's more than two actually. It's open to anyone anywhere in the world can enter the competition, but you must be under 18. You must be 17 years old or younger to enter the competition. You have to write the poem by hand, not with a computer or a typewriter or anything else. You have to write it by hand with a pen or a pencil. And it has to be maximum 50 words long. And every word counts. So the is a word, it is a word, is a word. It has to be 50 words or less. The poem can also be, or should also be, decorated in any way that you feel is appropriate, with drawings, patterns, pictures of any kind. We don't want poems which are written by artificial intelligence. And we can see when a poem is written by artificial intelligence, normally. We want poems that are written by you, from your mind, from your imagination, from your creativity. The poem must be written mostly in English, but you could use some words in other languages if you want to, but it must be mostly written in English. At the bottom of the poem, we'd like you to write your name and your location and your age. And you need to send us the poem by email, or you need to take a picture of the poem and send it to us by email before the 31st of January 2026. All right, so I'm just very quickly just going to show you a couple of examples of those poems. And these are two poems from, can you hear the call to prayer just started here in Cairo? You can't hear it, okay. So this is an example from our first book, Moon Tell Me Truth. It's a poem written by a young poet from Gaza called Nada Miqdad, and it's called Features. My eyes, skin, cheeks, I wish to change. A bottle I threw into the sea's range. The waves called out, brown skin, you are beautiful. The tree grabbed my scarf, so powerful. The sun whispered in my ear, you are all my children, I hold you dear. So you'll see that Nada has followed all the rules and she's managed to make a beautiful poem. It's less than 50 words. It's got a beautiful illustration as well. And she's got her name and her age and where she is written underneath. Now, there's also a bit of rhyme in this poem, some rhyme. I wish to change a bottle I threw into the sea's range. That's the only rhyme in the poem. And you don't need to write a rhyme. You don't need to write a poem that rhymes. It's not going to make it better if it rhymes or make it worse if it rhymes. It can rhyme if you want it to, but it's not a rule that the poem has to rhyme. Then I wanted to show you another poem which is also also follows the same rules. This is from our second book, Oh Big Blue. And this one goes like this. Everyone is to blame. Silence is worse than war. No one hears. No one speaks. Suddenly, everyone is unable to feel. Face the reality. Gaza has turned into ashes. Loss, pain, illness, cries, death. It's all what we have. And yet, no one hears. No one speaks. Everyone is to blame. Another powerful, beautiful, amazing poem, less than 50 words, with an illustration and the name and the place. And you'll notice, those of you who are interested in accuracy in language, that there's what we might call a mistake in there. For instance, it's all what we have. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if there's a grammatical inaccuracy in the poem. If there's a spelling mistake in the poem, it doesn't matter. What we're looking for, or maybe what the judges are looking for, is something which creates an image in your mind, which is an interesting use of language. And as somebody's just said, Vilma, in the comments, it's from the heart. And that's what matters. What a beautiful way of expressing it. Yes, poem is from the heart. So we want poems from the heart. And with that, I will hand over to the first. Should we go to you, Nick, now? Should we go to you? So from one Nick to another Nick Perring in the UK, I believe, right?
I'm in the northwest of the UK. Thank you, Nick. As we said, it's nice to be able to say hello, Nick, without us talking to ourselves. So that's nice. Hello, everybody. It is a real pleasure to be in front of you. And I don't want to take too much of your time, because I know this could be quite a heavy listening task for you guys. But there's two things that I want to do. The first is kind of define what I think a poem is, because I think it will help. And the second is I've written a response, which I'm happy to put in the chat if anybody wants to use that as a way in for anyone who might want to write a poem. So the first thing I want to say is a poem is anything anybody wants it to be. When I teach this, which I've done for 20 years, I think when we see things or when we experience things, we think and we feel. And what's halfway between your brain and your heart is your mouth. So when we speak, it's a combination of us thinking about what we feel or what we feel about what we've just processed, and it comes out of our mouths. In this case, we're just going to write it down in its purest form, because I think a poem is an emotional response or observation to something that we have experienced. In this case, the experience is going to be that beautiful painting. And I always say when I look at writing responses from photographs or from paintings or from anything visual, there's two things we need to remember. One is, of course, how it makes us feel, because that's what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to make us feel something. And two, whose perspective are we looking at this from? So are we looking at it from the person with the flowers? Are we looking at it as somebody documenting what's happening? We could look at it from the flowers' point of view. Maybe this is something that's been sent to us as a document of something that's happened. Are we seeing this through an insect's eyes? There's lots of different perspectives we can look at. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paste in to the chat my response, which is just under 50 words, which is nice. And I thought it's always good to offer something positive because we know the situation there is far from positive. And I thought, well, let's look at how we can make things a little bit brighter. So even in the shadows, we pause, plant. We need to move our minds beyond our own skin. Ask, what can we begin? Sow warmth. I sow kindness. I sow you a tree whose roots reach the farthest hearts when ears and eyes are closed. So I will leave you with that, guys, before I take too long. If anybody's got any questions, happy to answer them. Pop them in the chat. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Nick. And we'll go over to Batul. Are you still here, Batul? I can't see you.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, I'm
brilliant.
still here.
So where are you? I can try and spotlight you if I can find you. I can't see you now. Oh, there you are. Yeah, you are.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. Hello, everyone. I'll try just to give you some exercises or some tips which I myself try to use when I feel I'm stuck with writing. First, when we want to write a poem, sometimes not necessarily that I have a feeling at this moment that I want to write about, maybe a previous feeling. Let's say that I'm happy and or sad, and think of 5 words which are related for you personally with this feeling. Maybe, like, for example, sadness is like reminds you of a tree, of a chair. Let's say, for example, of a verb like see, and other words like, but keep them 5 words, and then use those 5 words to build a poem, like a play, and you'll enjoy it. And also, for me, poetry is about metaphors, or let's say similes. So what is simile? Simile is literally just saying that this thing resembles the other something, like another thing. Let's say, for example, the color of this cup is like the color of my headscarf. Or let's say it's like the color of your mother's eyes, or like a color of like a shelf on which there are books of your father, or a book which your father used to read you when you was a little child. So this is how similes are built mainly. It's like from you, from inside you, and from the world around you. You find them around. You don't have really to search so far to find them. So don't worry at the beginning about the number of words. Just write as much as you can. And after you finish writing, you go to the process of editing. So you start just deleting and deleting and deleting until you feel that we have 50 words. Then leave it like for a day or so and get back to it. Show it to your mother, to your friend, to your teacher, to someone you trust, and see what they think. And use their feedback just to change a little bit in your poem to improve it. And that's, in my opinion, or basically this is my own process in writing. And I hope that this will be helpful for you.
Thank you so much, Batul. I'm going to try that technique myself. And thank you for sharing the process, your own process with us. Okay, brilliant. So shall we go to, I don't know, where should we go now? I'm just looking who's next on my screen. So we've got Alice. Can we go to you, Alice?
Hello there. Hi, everybody. Thank you to Nick and Batul. I'm definitely going to follow those bits of advice. And for me, poems are about excitement, really. I can't write any poem unless I'm in a state of excitement. So when I look at that picture, which is beautifully drawn, I must say, it's really the flowers that excite me. I don't know why I love flowers so much, but I think one reason is that I know lots of ancient stories about people turning into flowers, particularly a Roman poet called Ovid, who has a series of stories about catastrophes in people's lives, and they seem to be in some way rescued by turning into a flower. So there's Narcissus, who stares into water and sees himself and falls in love with himself and gets thinner and thinner and is finally turned into what we call a narcissus or a daffodil. And then there's Adonis, who gets charged by a wild boar and he dies and his body is turned into a flower. And I just wonder whether the flower in that picture is the same flower, an anemone, a beautiful, very small flower which you find in woods. So those stories fascinate me. And I think that whenever I look at a flower, I see something human in a flower. At any rate, flowers are in some way always responding to the light. So they remind me of human eyes. So in that particular picture, I can't help wondering what the flowers have seen. I can see a ruin and a very beautiful building behind it. But I just really want to know what the flowers have experienced. And of course, flowers have to wait for insects before they can speak, because they don't have voices. But when an insect visits a flower, it gains a voice. Or when a human sees a flower. So I think that would be my task if I were looking at that picture, is how to give those flowers a voice. And I think they have very strange voices. And I just want to leave you with a description of a flower by one of England's better known poets called Shakespeare. And I want to give you this description because it's so odd and I don't really understand it. And I love what Nick said about sentences that might not seem to use the right grammar or might not seem to make sense. And often Shakespeare's language is so strange we don't even really know what it means. So here is Shakespeare's description of daffodils. Daffodils that come before the swallow dares and take the winds of March with beauty. I'll say that again. Daffodils that come before the swallow dares and take the winds of March with beauty. So a swallow is a bird that comes in the spring, but I really wonder what it means to say that a flower takes the wind. It's sort of the wrong way around. You would think that the wind might take the flower. So I'll leave you to puzzle out what it might be when a flower takes the wind. And another writer called Hélène Cixous describes flowers picking people to pick them. So for me, a poem has to start with excitement and perhaps end with strangeness, that kind of strange way of using language that makes us see things all over again. That's
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alice. I think that we should go to your husband. Because I think, well, I was going to go to Mirsad, but I think he's just dropped out of the meeting.
He's there.
Oh, he's there. He is there. Yes. There we go then. Over to you, Mirsad.
Hello. What do you want me to talk about? Is it experiences about writing poems or war experiences, or how do I get inspired?
What do you feel like talking about now to help
I
young
want to
people
tell you
make a poem?
something. I want to tell you something. I don't know, something practical that might surprise you. How we'd meet. I think coming as a child who survived genocide from Bosnian war, what tends to happen when you suffer with mental illnesses, they give you they send you to priests, they send you to imam, they send you to yoga, they send you to mental institutions, and then they send you to the drama courses, and then they send you to write poems. So none of it worked. And it kind of works for a short period of time, and then it just disappears. And I think traumas are something that live in you forever. But to cut the story short, how I got into writing is going back to the Bosnian War, 1992, 1995. I was a child when the war broke out. I was literally 13, and a first-hand experience in war. Didn't really know what it means, and I didn't connect with the reality of it. And then within a following day, you realize that the war is very selfish, and it takes people away in minutes, in seconds, in bioseconds, and you can't trust no one. You can't trust your own family. I remember, I've just got to introduce this, and I'm going to go to the end, how I got into the writing. All I remember is that very rich and high status celebrities and very well-known people were killed quite instantly. They were taken for questioning from their families, from their homes, and they were executed. But I remember the old man, and he was a family member. What has happened, the ethnic cleansing in northwest of Bosnia started in May 1992. And we had surrounding neighbors and family members, about 36 family members in our house. And when the soldiers would come to interrogate, ask questions, take people away, murder people, remember the old man, he was about 78 years old, a family member. And the soldier says, we need to ask you a few questions. And he really got upset. He stood up and he says, why are you bothering me? You look at these kids. They know everything. I don't know anything. And that's all I remember. That stuck in my head more than anything. That selfishness. And that fear, I think, from the old man was straight away planted into young kids. And he pointed at me, and this is when I've got put into execution spa and I got tortured and the rest of it. So that's done, and I ended up with a human appeal. They've chosen my family to take us to United Kingdom for treatment for my PTSD. I've already started suffering flashbacks, nightmares, and occasional these vicious attacks that I would attack people and so on. And then we lost a very famous family member. He was a bodybuilder named Fikret Hodzic. He was a well-established bodybuilder. And the first time I went to Bosnia, I was about 21. I've said to my auntie that I met her after the war, and her husband's been killed. And I said one day, she spoke about her husband has been taken in front of her whole family and been executed in front of her two children. Following that, she's told me that Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote a condolence letter, and that meant quite a lot to her. She's had it laminated, and she said it meant a lot to her. And he's actually taken her. She was a refugee in Austria. He's taken her out of a refugee center in Austria and put her in her own flat for over a year. And then he's asked the family if they can. The Arnold Schwarzenegger asked the family if they can go back to Bosnia when the war stopped in 1995, so the young boy can continue with bodybuilding. And what's interesting, Arnold Schwarzenegger is well recognized in bodybuilding in that era. The Fikret Hodzic was 15 times Mr. Yugoslavia consequently. And he was well known, and he stayed in our town because he was a celebrity to support people, and he thought nobody will kill him because he's well known, and he was one of the first victims, in fact. So to cut the story short, the little boy went back, and my auntie went back to Bosnia, and they set up the gym. And the Arnold Schwarzenegger gave them the money to start the gym in the name of their dad. And the little boy was being executed by someone. He's been killed. And they haven't resolved that murder after 20 years. He was only 20 when he got killed. So I said to my auntie, I said, one day I'll meet Arnold Schwarzenegger and just personally thank him. So through people that I knew, we're talking about 12 years ago, my first meeting with Arnold Schwarzenegger in America was amazing. And I've literally had the letter with me and nobody would let me in to see him. And through a friend that was a bodyguard that I knew, he's taken my letter that Auntie has given me and I gave it to him. And straight away invited me in his green room and he let me in. And I spoke with him at length. And he said to me that he actually flew to Žrepa in 1994 to greet the American troops. And he found out that his friend, Fikret Hodzic, got killed. And he said to me, he said, Jamal, you have to carry on with bodybuilding like your dad did. I says, I'm not Jamal. And he says, where's Jamal? I says, he's been killed. So he started crying, and Arnold Schwarzenegger asked me to leave the room. And then there was Jonathan Nealon's there. He was doing a show in America. And I remember sitting there and just saying, well, it was a bad exit. He just asked me to leave. Then after a few minutes, he asked me to come back in. And he says, I'm sorry about that, because I was under impression I was talking to Jamal, because we had good connection over the telephone. We had good connection over the letters. And I couldn't believe that he's been assassinated, basically, after the war. And then he said to me, you're a young kid and you got lots of information in your head. Try to record it somewhere. I sat in the town and he said, if you manage to record it somewhere in a form of book or something, I'll help you to promote it. So I sat in a plane from Los Angeles to UK Heathrow, and I wrote 99 poems. And that was, for me, an inspiration. That's how I got into writing. And I've gone back to Arnold Schwarzenegger and I said, look, I've managed to write this and I'm about to publish it. He says, when you get the book out, send it over and I'll come to Birmingham and promote it. And he came to Birmingham and promoted the book. And it became bestseller on Amazon in the world, first bestseller in the world. So here we are. I just thought that might be interesting for you guys. It's a complete accident to get into the writing poetry.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mirsad. So yes, the poem as a way of recording what's in your mind and what you've experienced. And I'm sure that lots of our young poets will want to use or will be inspired by the painting to write something very personal about what they've experienced. Great. Thank you very much, Mirsad. So we're going over now to, I think, the last of our poets, but not least, Peter Oswald.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And thank you, Mirsad. That was the most amazing story. Thank you. And
can I just add the name of the poem was The Boy Who Said Nothing, and he's done really well. And then after that, I wrote another book with the poems at the back of it. So I'm sorry it's taken too long. I talk a lot. I'm so sorry. I realized I've taken most of the meetings and I do apologize.
It's okay.
No, please don't apologize. It was a really extraordinary and very, very beautiful, powerful story, and completely relevant to the competition. And although obviously it's a worldwide competition, many of those who are approaching it will be people with trauma of some kind. And I think what you've just said will inspire them that there's a way to transform that into poetry. It's all there and it can come out very quickly. And I love stories myself. And I love the fact that there are many. It seems to me there are many stories hidden within the picture that this competition is about, and there are many layers. It's a beautifully complex picture, and I ask myself, is the mosque in the background or the beautiful building in the background, is that really there? Or is it what was there before the ruins? Is it in the imagination of the person? Is it what's going to grow out of the flowers? Questions like this. So it's a painting which doesn't seem to represent one moment in time, but many moments in time drawn together. And I think for me, that's what a poem is, whether it's long or short. It somehow manages to be outside of time by drawing many moments of time together into one feeling, maybe into as Batul said, into the remembering of a feeling through an image, for example. So, and in the previous, in the mentorship program we had, and in the previous competitions, it's been interesting to me how sometimes poets will, sometimes the line between a story and a poem is a very, very thin thing. So if somebody begins with the idea of a story, then it can give birth to a poem. There might be a poem hidden inside the story, or again, going back to what Batul said, maybe the story you start with can be reduced down in size, down and down, until it becomes a poem. And in fact, in that process of being reduced down, you're very likely to come to that point where you have different moments of time present in one short poem. So I would say to poets, feel free to write a story about the picture. Maybe look at the picture long and hard before you go to sleep, see what dreams you have. But as part of your process of writing a poem, you could write a story. And also, I want to just repeat what Nick said about language. One of the exciting things about these competitions and the books that have appeared is that they're poems written by people whose first language is not English. And so you are introducing whole new ideas about what English is, and what some people might call a mistake could be a really interesting new use of English. And English, if it's any use at all, is an expanding, changing thing anyway. So please feel free to maybe if you find there isn't, you think of a word in your own language and there isn't a word in English for that word, what are you going to do then? You might have to think of a wholly new idea, or you might have to just include that word in your own language in the poem and try and make sure somehow that the words around it more or less explain what it means. But don't feel bossed around by English. English is listening for new sounds and new meanings. So I think that is what I'd like to end on. And just to say also, I was so struck by that line in the poem Nick read out: silence is worse than war. And poetry is the opposite of silence. So it's one of the things that defeats war. And so thank you to everybody who takes part in this competition.
I forgot I was muted. Thank you so much, Peter. Yes. And of course, yeah, as Peter was saying, I mean, the first book that we brought out is called Moon Tell Me Truth. It's not Moon Tell Me the Truth, it's Moon Tell Me Truth. And it's so much better a title for a collection of poems than Moon Tell Me the Truth, isn't it? I'm sure we'd all agree on that. Moon Tell Me Truth. So I'm going to hand over to Neil now, who's going to talk a little bit, Neil Sledge from the National Education Union, who's going to talk a little bit about the sort of background to this competition and where the money, where the money, the books are going to go and what's going to happen with this project. So over to you, Neil.
Thank you very much. Wow, what a very powerful session we're having. And I really like the way that everyone comes at it, all the people who've been speaking, from a different perspective. It's really interesting. And from, almost historical with Shakespeare to the 90s in Bosnia to now. So wonderful. Yes, I am from the NEU. That's one of my sort of voluntary roles. I'm an international solidarity officer in one of the districts, but it means I can get access to all the international solidarity officers across England and Wales and Northern Ireland, the Education Union in Europe. So we can also access thousands upon thousands of educators, which is wonderful. And I've been working particularly closely with the NEU International Department and Committee with regards to remembering Srebrenica and everything that does, and the survivors' stories and the lessons from that genocide, and also the messages from survivors and particularly the mothers of Srebrenica, and how relevant that is to today's world and wherever we live. So last year was the 30th anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide, and we did a lot of work with our members and beyond, and as did RSUK, Remembering Srebrenica UK. And one of the results of that is that we got secured a little bit of funding, and I've been following Nick and Hands Up for a couple of years and met him a few times and been very impressed with all the work. And I just suggested that we might be able to do a joint project. And the idea is that we get some young people who are Bosnian, young people who are Palestinian, young people who are British to respond to that wonderful painting, which is so open, some kind of open-ended stimulus. And we publish a book, just like the two that Nick's held up earlier on, and have an exhibition which is available to countries and organisations, but also printed in the UK, and to all that to be launched at the National Education Union annual conference, which takes place just before Easter, which is this year, the beginning of April. Every year in a different town in England or Wales. And this year it's going to be in Brighton from March the 30th to April the 2nd. And we are going to have a fringe meeting. Hands Up will have a stall. There will also be a Srebrenica stall and a Srebrenica fringe meeting. And we will be promoting the poems from this book. So the book will be published and available to buy, and the book will be an exhibition or display at this conference, and it will be available to be shared electronically with participating organizations. So it can be printed in other countries. We want it up in Bosnia and we want it up in Palestine. Really going to become, I hope, something really big. But it's a very much a joint partnership in initiative between Hands Up Project, Remembering Srebrenica, and the National Education Union. So it's a great honour to be with you all today and to have helped kind of promote and organise this. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Neil. Thank you to all the poets who've been here. Thank you to all of you for participating. And I think it just remains to say good luck to everyone who's going to write a poem and participate in this competition. We will share the recording of this on our YouTube channel and make it available through our social media channels. Nick, you were just going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a bit of clarity on the translation. Because I know, was it Britta? Did you ask if we could submit it in a different language? And you said it's all right as long as it's translated into English.
Yeah.
I'm just, because I've done this with people who have English as a second language before, and it's gone through AI. Is that or Google Translate? Is it worth stipulating that, or are we quite happy that that'll be managed with whoever's doing the organizing?
I mean, I don't think we can really control how it's translated. I think sometimes using artificial ways of translating things can actually create some quite interesting poetry sometimes. So yes, but I mean it's fine to write it in another language and then translate it. I don't know if you do. Does anyone else have anything to add on that? Those of you who've worked, I mean, I know a lot of the poets involved in the Hands Up project who've worked through our mentorship program. We had a lot of interesting discussions about that, didn't we? About writing in Arabic and then translating to English. Does anybody want to add anything on that note? Yes, Peter.
Yeah, the AI translations are normally very, very boring and kind of empty, and in my experience, and so I would just advise people. Obviously, it's not a rule, like you say, Nick, and you can't control it anyway. But your poetry might not come through very well from AI. I know that other people might have had different experiences, but that's been my experience broadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe encourage, try it in English, and even if we're getting it slightly wrong, then as Nick said before, that's absolutely fine. Because I've done that before. I sent a script, this is going off way off topic, a script off ages ago where there was some Arabic in it, and I just used Google Translate as a placeholder, and I was told it was like they were speaking in like pre-Victorian equivalents. So maybe have a go at English if that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Can I just add? I lost the volume. I hardly hear, but I think it's down to my telephone because I'm using telephone. I'm still at work. Being bilingual, sometimes I write in English, sometimes I write in Bosnian. To translate it, a lot of time it doesn't make sense. But there are times that certain poems would come very interesting for English readers because it's differently written. There's a different strategy. There's a different beat. So I would suggest strongly that we could use in every sentence maybe one word that might be foreign. It's a pivoting word to explain a scenery, a day, a fear, or whatever. And sometimes those words could be more powerful in another language than English. But writing it in another language, it is a challenge for readers not being able to understand. I mean, I've translated my book so the first book I've written, and it's interesting the way all of these memories that when I've written on the plane, I've written it all in Bosnian, and that was really weird because my Bosnian, it was like at the time I was only 13, so it wasn't that good, but the language used in Bosnian, it worked really well to explain my experiences. All the points were about the war. But when we wanted it to translate in English, it was a hell of a job. You can't just get a translator to translate poetry. In my opinion, it doesn't work. As someone that's bilingual, obviously it's easier. So I've had a translation company trying to translate it, and it didn't work. So I've ended up translating every single poem myself. There are different expressions in English, and there are different expressions in Bosnian. So they just clash with each other, and sometimes it doesn't make sense when you translate it from word to word. So you have to be artistic, and you have to have a stimulus. It's almost like writing them from the scratch, in my opinion, and in my experience, considering it was my first book.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
Thank you, Mirsad. I think, do we have any other questions, or are we? I mean, that's a good point about using a dictionary. You're not gonna, you won't. That makes it part a learning process, then, doesn't it? Doing the translation rather than just sticking it into Google Translate.
Yeah.
And also, it might keep its poetic quality if you're doing it through a dictionary. I mean, I'm just going back to this again. Moon Tell Me Truth. It could be, now my Arabic isn't good enough to know whether you would use an article with truth. Would you use? I mean, in English, you would normally say the truth, like there's only one truth. But here we've got Moon Tell Me Truth, and that gives a very beautiful idea, because it indicates that maybe there is, well, to me, it indicates that there may be more than one truth, or that truth isn't a sort of fixed thing. But it could be that came out of that came out of a translation. That just came out of translating something from Arabic to English, kind of word for word. So, there's something poetic about the translation process, I think, which we should acknowledge, and which we should embrace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's from Arabic, you're saying, Rakia. It's from Arabic. Okay. Yeah.
And often poets work collaboratively when they're translating with someone who maybe they're translating into the first language of. Is that allowed, do you think, Nick? I mean,
yeah.
If you write your own poem in your own language and then you collaborate with somebody in the translation, is that allowed?
We can't stop it. There's no way of stopping it, and I can't see what the problem would be with it. I mean, I think lots of writing, as other people have said, it's beautiful. Show your poem to somebody. I think it was Batul who was saying that. Show your poem to someone and get some feedback on it, and it's a dialogic process, isn't it? All writing is dialogic. It's thinking about your audience and getting feedback from the audience. So yeah, I think definitely that should be allowed and encouraged. Brilliant. Lovely. Well, I love this time of year when we have this poetry competition, and we all get very excited when we see an email coming in with a poem that we're going to look at, so we're very much looking forward to seeing the work of the young people. Thank you all again for being here today, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.